Welcome to the day after talking Duck sports. And oh my God, what a game that was! Oregon, number 6, and number 3, Penn State, the whiteout. And it was everything that it was hyped up to be and expected to be. But first, we're going to look at the rankings real quick. With that win, Oregon moves up to number 2. And I'm not going to fault this. I don't think Oregon should be number 1. Ohio State is the national championship. They are undefeated. I think they should be number 1 until they're beaten. However, I do agree with Miami not being number 2. Oregon now has the second best win in the nation. Ohio, they beat, which is now number 9, Texas, but at the time they were number 1. And Oregon is now beaten number 3. And at Happy Valley in a whiteout, and that's a pretty damn good win for Oregon. I'll have to admit, that game was a little sketchy to me. But we have a whole bunch of losses. 3, 4, and 5 lost. They all moved down. Ole Miss makes a huge jump and comes up here to number 4. Oklahoma moves up a couple spots to number 5. Texas A&M is now 6. Penn State drops down to 7, which was one below where Oregon was, but with a couple other wins and having one loss, I don't disagree with that. However, Indiana, I don't know how I feel about them being undefeated and below all these guys, but it is what it is. They'll have a chance to move up. Texas number 9, and Alabama runs out the top 10. Georgia and LSU dropped 7 and 9 spots with their losses to teams that they shouldn't have lost to, I guess is the way I put it. But there you go. I mean, you got, what, 4 Big Ten teams in there. Miami, I believe that's ACC, and then you got the SEC team in here. But what a tremendous rise in the polls. I'm fine with this. We'll look at Oregon's schedule in a minute. But let's go back to this game, because this game, if you look at last year's game, it was an offensive show, an offensive powerhouse, and it was kind of the last team to have the ball, kind of a thing. But that was a neutral site. This year, you got Penn State doing what Penn State does. I have a whole bunch of people that returned. They have a really good offense, and at halftime, it was 3-3, and I think what you saw was 2 really well-coached teams, 2 really well-coached defensive teams on top of that. The defenses were just making plays, and the offenses just couldn't get into rhythm. Oregon missed, I think, a 49-yard field goal that would have given them, a 3-point lead going into the half, but that didn't happen. The adjustments were made in the second half. Oregon scores in the third quarter. Oregon goes to the fourth quarter. Oregon scores early in the fourth quarter. Oregon's up, by 14 points, and the game looks over. I thought the game was over. It totally looked over, and it just wasn't over. And then all of a sudden, you have Penn State rallying back. And, the game was just very good. And what I want you to look at is this probability thing, this game tracker. I just thought was very interesting. At the beginning of the game, Oregon's moving the ball, and, Penn State goes 3 and out, and it's kind of wavering back and forth. It's 50-50. And then you're going along, and Penn State scores, and they go up to 54%. in a few series later, and then Oregon scores to make it 3-3, and Penn State still has a probability win. It goes up to 50-50, and then you have Oregon's really moving the ball at this point, and then they go up by a touchdown. It goes up to 78%, and then they just keep moving the ball, and then now they're up by 14 points, right? And it's a 94.7% chance that they're going to win. And that's the way I felt. I was like, oh, man, this game is over. Because Oregon generally doesn't implode like they did. And then all of a sudden, it just starts dropping down. Penn State starts moving the ball. Penn State scores, and all of a sudden, Penn State takes the edge. And then goes into overtime. Penn State scores. They got a 75% chance to win. And then Oregon. I don't quite understand this one. I guess they were so close to scoring, and that's why they did it. But then when Oregon scores, all of a sudden, it was 95% chance to win. And then all of a sudden it's tied and it goes back to 50-50. And then Oregon scores and then misses the extra point. And then now Penn State has a 52% chance to win. I thought that was pretty interesting there. And it was and it was a little higher at one point. And then, of course, you know what happens there. At the end there, we'll go ahead and we'll watch that real quick. So this is the end of the game. Penn State's driving. Dylan Thielman picks it off as the walk-off game winner in the second overtime at Happy Valley in the whiteout. An amazing play. Oregon had been getting burnt on that earlier, and Dan Lanning said that they made an adjustment for specifically those plays. So I thought that was kind of interesting that they were ready for that. They're ready for it, basically. But let's look at the stats, because in the first half, you just felt like Oregon was kind of dominating the game for the most part. Even though the score didn't reflect it, they were kind of moving the ball much better than Penn State was. It really, at one point, Penn State, I think they had 104 yards total or something like that. And I don't know. It was pretty low until that fourth quarter, and that's basically where they got most of their yards. But Oregon with 20 first downs, Penn State with 15. Oregon has 18 third down chances to Penn State's 15, and they both get 6 of those. But here was kind of the real difference is fourth down efficiency. Penn State went 3 for 3, and Oregon went 5 for 7. 176 rushing yards for Oregon to 139, most of those in the fourth quarter. Passing yards, 248 to 137. Total yards, 424 to 276. You can just see the lopsidedness of moving the ball up and down. Oregon had 2 sacks, didn't give up any sacks. Of course, that's the second overtime interception. Oregon punts twice, and Penn State punted 5 times. A really costly penalty for Oregon in this game that I think cost them at least 3 points, if not a score. It was on a fourth down play, or it was on right at the end of a third down play. Penn State player throws his elbows up and hits one of the offensive linemen in the face. The Oregon offensive lineman, of course, retaliates and trips the guy right in front of the referee. They throw the flag, 15-yard personal foul penalty, because you know the second guy, the guy that retaliates is always the guy that gets caught. But you still have to, in big games, restrain yourself, because that literally could have cost the game right there. Fumbles lost there. There was a handoff mishap, and Moore ends up falling on the ball and keeping the possession. 33.52 minutes of possession for Oregon to 26.8. And if you kind of look at the box score here, nothing in the first quarter. Both teams trying to fill each other out. Defense was just playing on fire. Second quarter, they got close enough for a field goal. Oregon then later on puts a field goal early in, Oregon then scores a touchdown midway through the third. They score another touchdown beginning of the fourth. And then Penn State in the fourth quarter at the end, I thought Oregon's defense really imploded and showed some of the problems that they kind of have. It's kind of been this Achilles heel, and then it was kind of the thing as last year is Penn State had like 200 and some rushing yards on Oregon, and that was like a big emphasis. But the thing about that was when Penn State needed a run, Oregon had no answer for that run, especially in short yardage runs. And I thought there were several times that that Oregon just couldn't stop a run. Like, literally, they would make the stop, and then Penn State would get behind, and they would push for another 6-7 yards. And then on short yardage plays, 4th and 1s, 4th and 2, Oregon just had no way to stop it. Even if they hit them at the line, those guys were just falling forward. I think that's going to be a thing for Oregon, is they need to figure out their short yardage defense and their goal line defense. Oregon does not, to me, in my opinion right now, have a good short yardage defense or a goal line defensive stand. For some reason, they just can't seem to stop those runners. And in the push from behind, that Reggie Bush tush push thing, that seems to always benefit the offense. But I just feel like there's some defenses that can still stop that, and right now Oregon is not one of them. But the one touchdown that Penn State had, the first one, they just got over the top. It was a beautiful throw by the quarterback, Aller, and it was a beautiful catch in the end zone. So it just is what it is. Sometimes that just happens. But you'd really like to see Oregon stay on top of that and not let people behind them, because that was a big play. And I think if that touchdown pass hadn't happened, I don't think this game ends up being close. I think that sparked Penn State and got them going a little bit. So, all right, let's go ahead and check out these individual stats here. Dante Moore, Dan Lanning said it best. I think we had the best quarterback in the nation. He went into... You got to remember, this is really his first real starting games in Oregon. He's played one road game. This is his second road game in a whiteout at Penn State with 110,000 people, and he looked absolutely careless, like he didn't have a worry in the world. He was calm, cool, collected. There was maybe two dangerous passes, one that was caught, but if Stewart hadn't have caught that ball, it definitely would have been an interception. Other than that, I thought Dante Moore played a fantastic game. I think if I had to say something bad about Dante Moore, about the game that happened at Penn State, it would be the fact that it seemed to he seemed to maybe not know where the first down line was when he went to slide sometimes, or when he went to finish runs. Um, but that's kind of a super nitpicky thing to say because you don't want your running back, you don't want your quarterback getting hurt when he's running, and he was kind of putting his body on the line a little bit, and those slides are designed to keep you from getting hit. So, I mean, I don't know. Sometimes you need to get that hard yard, but other than that, man, Deer Hill Jr. had a fantastic game. 10 carries, 82 yards. I thought there were points on there where he looked just super fast, and Penn State wasn't really ready for it. He had a long of 24. Dante Moore ends up being the second leading rusher with 10 carries, 35 yards, a long of 9. Noe Winnington had 7 carries, 25 yards. He had that one like almost fumble that wasn't a fumble, so I don't remember seeing him really play after that. But Oregon really rotated their guys through to keep him fresh. Jordan Davison, of course, the short yardage man, 4 carries, 17 yards, and a touchdown. Jaden Lamar, 7 carries, 17 yards. And Kenyon Sadiq had 1 carry, apparently, no yards. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Again, 8 receivers for 29 catches, 248 yards, 3 TDs. Decorian Moore, I thought Decorian Moore played really, really well. I think he maybe could have got open a little more, but the decision making that he had and he showed in that game was fantastic, and especially on the kind of broken play where Dante rolls out to the right, and Decorian breaks his route and then takes off, and on the run more Dante throws it over the top and makes that first down play. I thought that was probably Decorian Moore's best catch in that game, just because of the knowledge that it was kind of a broken play and they did it on his own. Gary Bryant Jr. comes up clutch, 6 catches, 55 yards, 1 TD, and he made catches that Oregon had to have. Kenyon Sadiq, 6 catches, 49 yards. They specifically tried to stop him in this game. I know he got hurt a little bit. I'm hoping it was nothing serious, but it looked like maybe like a dead leg or an ankle or something. Jaden Lamar makes 3 catches for 20 yards out of the backfield. Dahir Hill, another running back, makes 2 catches. Malik Benson has 2 catches for 11 yards. He came up on a couple clutch plays too. Noe Winnington has 2 catches for 10 yards, and Jamari Johnson has 1 catch for 2 yards. Overall, just they played really well. And look at this guy. Bryce Betcher, again, has over 10 tackles on the day. Like, man, that man is just everywhere, just making plays, always around the ball. Had 3 solo tackles, didn't have a sacks. Tua Toy had a huge couple plays. Had, the 1 tackle for loss, but it was big. Uli Ungale, Mateo, another. Those 2 guys on the edges, man, they really give Oregon that bookends that they need to get around and wreak havoc in that backfield. 1 sack here and 2 tackles for loss. Overall, what a fantastic game to watch. The anxiety, the emotions, and all that thing. It was just really, really a great game. And I think Penn State's really good. I don't think this was Oregon's not good and they just barely win. Oregon goes into a hostile environment, plays very poised, had very little mistakes, but still came away with some stuff that they can work on. And Dan Lanning, this is Dan Lanning's first overtime win. Oregon has now, I think it's like 11 or something in a row, or It might be higher than that, but still undefeated in the Big Ten through 2 years so far. And then let's take a look at Oregon's. Whoops, I don't want the stats. I want the schedule here. So Oregon has a week off. And then Indiana, high-scoring Indiana, is going to come over to Autzen. And Oregon should be favored in that game. It's at home. I expect Oregon to win a close one simply because I think Indiana can score. I think it's probably a 10-point win by Oregon, but the game is probably close in the first half, and Oregon pulls away later. And then if you look, you got Rutgers, Wisconsin, Iowa, Minnesota, USC, and then at Washington. Oregon should be favored in all the rest of their games and have a very, very, very good chance to, again, go undefeated in the regular season. They got past the big one there, and, but now they got another top 10 matchup, in 2 weeks. Indiana, I believe, also has a bye because I don't think, because there's a lot of teams that have byes before Oregon. Oregon doesn't have any before them. So, so look to Oregon being pretty healthy, Indiana being pretty healthy. Indiana makes the long trip out to Oregon and play at Autzen Stadium. I'm sure Autzen Stadium will be super duper loud. And with that, we're going to call it a day. But, man, what an absolute gem of a game. You can't ask for anything more than a competitive top 10 matchup. In a way, I'm kind of glad Penn State came back as long as Oregon still won. But I would like to see Oregon shore up that run defense and shore up that fourth quarter defense. I'm sure that's something that Dan Lanning's going to be looking at. But as a fan, hey, a win is a win. We keep moving. Now we're up in the polls. Now we just got to watch our back because it's going to be a big old target with that Indiana team coming in. So with that, we are out of here. Much love all. Go Ducks, and we will see you next time.